you've been asked to meet. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator King. Senator Rounds.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, let me just say thank you to all three of you for your service to our country. Secretary Mink, I know that you're drinking out of a fire hose right now, so I'm not going to get into all of the current situation with regard to the Air Force. But I would like to discuss something that I think is critical, and I know that you've got a background in it, and that is, and it'll come to no surprise to the rest of the committee, I want to talk about spectrum for just a minute. We've heard from, I know, no surprise, right? We've now heard from 24 senior DoD officials in hearings over the last 2 years, including every service chief and 8 combatant commanders, that vacating the 3.1 to 3.45 gigahertz band of the spectrum would have extremely serious and negative consequences for our warfighting capabilities. In fact, the Department of the Navy alone has estimated that relocating their systems to a different part of the spectrum band would cost them approximately $250 billion. How would forcing the Air Force to vacate the 3.1 to 3.45 gigahertz and other critical bands of the electromagnetic spectrum impact the service's warfighting capabilities?
First off, Senator, thank you for the support on this particular issue. As you mentioned, we've been discussing this for quite some time. And for other members of the committee and other parts of Congress and support in this area. Yeah, one of the things we discussed a little bit is what would it cost to do that and what would be the impact. I think that one of the things we're struggling with a little bit is that just due to the nature of physics of how these systems operate and how the atmosphere absorbs energy, that's a pretty special band. And it's difficult and maybe in some ways almost impossible just to move to other bands. So in some cases, it may be very difficult, if not impossible, to totally replicate some of the capabilities we have in that band. And it would take quite some time to do so, even if we could.
Would you
so I
say
think that's what we're struggling with now, Senator, is how do we do that analysis to figure out what we could do and how we would move and what spectrum we'd move to. So it's difficult to quantify it.
Our near-peer adversaries know that, don't they?
Oh, of course, Senator. And the impacts would be pretty significant.
They would love to see us voluntarily abandon that particular part of the spectrum from what we use it for, which is radar. Fair to say?
I would agree with that, Senator. Yes.
It would be an unforced error for us to ever give up that part of the spectrum for one of its highest rated uses. The physics involved in it means that this is the place where radar really works.
Without a much better transition plan and understanding of how we would do that, it would be a mistake, Senator.
Thank you. Do you have any kind of an estimate as to what it would cost if we could migrate someplace else, even if it would not provide us as good of capabilities? Any idea yet at all?
I think we actually had this discussion last night. I actually don't think, just because of that we don't have a coherent plan of where and how we would maneuver or move, we actually don't have a good number for you, Senator.
Thank you. General Saltzman, look, based on what you know, the potential paths forward for building out President Trump's Golden Dome, is it possible to make it work if the Department of Defense were forced to vacate portions of the 3.1 to 3.45 gigahertz band and other unnamed critical bands of the spectrum that the Space Force currently uses as well?
Senator, as we evaluate the sensors that are going to be necessary to pick up hypersonics, to pick up cruise missiles, to pick up ballistic missiles, the radars are essential in that area, and that 3.1 to 3.45 is, like, as the Secretary mentioned, the physical properties of that spectrum range are ideal for that kind of detection using radar, and so the sensing part of the Golden Dome would suffer if we had to vacate.
This is a tiered system. It's not one which is totally space-based. There are certain assets in space that will help us to detect incoming weapon systems, but it is critical that it's tiered with other systems that are that are based on the terrain and in the area of the targets that we're protecting, correct?
Most of our space domain awareness, which is what's required to close that kill chain as things transit through space, most of those sensors are ground-based. The system that we're building, the DARK system, lives in this particular spectrum band as well and is critical to space domain awareness.
Thank you. I'm just going to very, very quickly, General Alvin, we're contracted right now for 100 B-21s. Anywhere close to the number that we're going to need?
Senator, if we could snap our fingers right now, I'd take as many as we could get right now. So as we look to the path of how many we get into the future, and we look at opportunities, we also need to look at what this B-52 modernization program, if it goes worse than we hope, then we would need more. If it goes better than we hope, I would say right now I'd take all I can get with the funding. But it's an incredible capability that turns out right now is testing pretty well. So the 100 minimum is certainly something we can stand behind. When we look at what the maximum is, I really want to look at the risk over time and opportunities over time.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And thank you. Senator Peters, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr.